Okay, and I can hear you also. I've got that problem solved. Sorry about that. Too many switches all have to be aligned in the right direction. So this is going to be Tristan's fourth day at this. Is that right?
Yes, day 4.
And anything we should be talking about before we launch into that?
Um, no, I guess we could just get going.
I'm ready.
Well, this 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 day has a couple samples that I'm a little embarrassed about, but I'm still going to talk about them, I think.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
I mean, I thought of self-censoring, but I don't necessarily think it merits that, so just go ahead and do it.
okay. Well, what I would say is that we should do it, and then when we're done doing it, then we can decide whether that was a good idea, and we can decide whether to erase video or whatever about that. But I think I prefer that to self-censoring. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. They're not that bad anyway. They're just still.
All right.
Mm.
Number one. So is number one of those that are in the category of?
Number one is fairly benign. So number one.
Okay.
So as a matter of fact, I was watching a movie, and I, um, it had been uttered in the film, the phrase, "What do you mean wrong?" Um, and I had that entire phrase in my consciousness somehow. So almost as if I was picking out that particular phrase from the film, um, and was sort of just registering it.
And does that mean I'm not just hearing that with comprehension, but I am somehow in my consciousness storing that or particularizing that, or
Yes, I believe that there's some particularizing in my consciousness because at that moment in time, there may have been words uttered since that phrase on screen, but that was the phrase that my mind had picked out at that moment.
okay?
Um,
And how does it particularize that? How does it pick that out? And I, and
Almost,
I'm and I'm not looking for a mechanism. I'm trying to ask about the experience. So what? How?
yeah, which is hard for me to say, almost as if the sound of it keeps ringing in my mind. Somehow this is a metaphor, but as if it sounded out and then the sound is sort of like carries on in my mind.
Okay. And by the sound carries on, which of that is the metaphor? So does this seem like an auditory phenomenon that I somehow continue to hear it, or is that the metaphor and it's just somehow it lingers and the best way I
It's
can,
almost as if I continue to hear it.
and by almost as if, do you mean in my imagination I continue to hear it?
Yes.
And I continue to hear it as it was said in the first place, like the actors said
Yeah.
it this way.
Yes.
So somehow I am continuing to hear that even though the actor is no longer saying it.
Yes.
Okay. And and I'm interested in the almost as if portion of that. So does it seem, as far as my experiences are concerned, does it still seem like I'm hearing it? Sort of straightforwardly, I'm still hearing it. In the real world, I know it's not there, but as far as my experiential world is, I still hear it.
Um, that could be yes.
But I'm not sure.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would say that I still hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm speaking it again. That's like not like I've heard it
No.
and now I'm speaking it. And it's not like I have heard it and now I'm seeing it written out or something. It's not like that.
Yes, I'm still hearing it.
Okay. And it's not like I'm just, and this isn't, I'm stating these as facts, but I really mean them as questions. Is it like, I guess I could say, is it like I have just stored away the understanding of it, and now the understanding of it is still present to me? Or is it that I continue to hear it even in my imagination?
I continue to hear it.
Okay. And is there anything else in my experience other than the continued hearing?
Regarding this phrase or
Any
regarding the rest of my sample?
or anything else in your experience?
So I'm thinking of a paper idea. The fact that I'm trying to think about this for an essay I'm going to write for a specific class, and the fact that I'm trying to think about this paper idea was quite prominent, but the actual content of this idea is quite it it's hard to pin down what the actual content of this idea is, but it has to do something with the idea of classifying types of uncanny narratives. Um, or ways to classify what makes a narrative uncanny.
And are you saying that something about uncanny narratives are present in my experience at the moment of the beep? Or are you saying there's really nothing present in my experience at the moment of the beep, but I know what I'm thinking about because I've been thinking about it or whatever? If
Um,
I have to tell
oh,
Hurlbert and Amber
right.
what the deal is, I'm going to say it's about uncanny narrative.
Something about uncanny narratives is present at the moment of the beep.
But not specifically what?
It, something about that is present at the moment of the beep.
Okay.
Um,
And is it possible to say more about what it is that's present, or is it just that I understand myself to be thinking about uncanny narratives, but I don't know anything more about what that thought process is?
um, well, um, there is an anxiety about wanting to find uh, something good to say about uncanny narratives, and about not knowing what I'm going to say about uncanny narratives.
And is that anxiety present at the moment of the beep?
Yes,
Experientially present.
yes,
It's not just that I understand that I'm anxious in this, but somehow I feel anxious at this moment.
yes.
And how does that present itself?
Um, this anxiety is is a cognitive anxiety, less than a bodily anxiety.
And by cognitive, do you mean I'm I'm thinking about this and the thinking is I'm calling it anxiety, or do you mean by cognitive something that's sort of in the mental realm? It's not bodily, but yet I feel anxiety. So the question is, the question that I want to distinguish here, does this seem like a feeling or does it seem like a thinking,
It's a it's a feeling actually.
but
Uh,
mental? So,
mental, yeah.
and it's related to the not knowing what I'm going to say. I want to say, I got to say something
Yeah.
in that ballpark. And is there anything else in your experience at the moment of this beep?
Yes, there's a visual component. Um, well, there are actually two visual components because uh, I am watching a film and I'm seeing what's happening on the screen. Um, but there's also just an equally strong imagined visual component, which is that I'm innerly seeing uh, a classroom and uh, well, hmm, I'm seeing a classroom, and I'm seeing myself, uh, and I'm seeing myself present a paper in it. However, um, this is sort of a seeing without seeing, as in this visual component, I know that what I'm seeing is myself presenting a paper in this classroom, but it's not like I'm seeing a specific image. It's like I'm seeing something. I know this something is me in this classroom presenting a paper, but the exact details of where I am, how I'm positioned, what's happening in the scene are harder to pick out.
So, so tell me about what you see without trying to explain why you might see it or what's behind it or whatever. So what do you see?
Um, well, it's a specific classroom that I know and have been in before. Um,
And do you see that more or less clearly? In my imagination, I see this particular classroom more or less clearly.
um, Less clearly.
And what do you see of that classroom? And
Um,
I'm not interested in the real classroom. I'm interested in what you see. Do you see desks or tables or maps or blackboards or all of the above or none of the above?
um,
And there's a long pause here.
yeah, maybe I can't say at this moment.
So should I understand that is at the moment I was seeing a classroom clearly, but now I can't remember the details of it? Or was it at the moment I was somehow seeing a classroom even though there were no classroom details present? I had the experience of seeing a classroom, but I didn't actually see a classroom, even in my imagination.
I think there are some details that I that I didn't properly note. Um,
They were there, but somehow forgotten between then and now.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
I wrote vague, diffuse, not very visual, but slight visual component. Um, yeah, I need to dig into what this scene was.
Okay.
I'm not very good at getting these half-formed seeing without seeing
Well,
samples.
so what I would say about that is that nobody is, at least at the beginning, and we might get better at that as we go. Maybe not, but we might, and that's part of the practice that we are engaged in is trying to describe as careful as we can what was actually going on at the moment of the beep without speculating about it.
Right.
So at some future beep, when you have this kind of an experience, well, maybe you'll be able to capture it better, or maybe not. Maybe there's something about this kind of experience which just evades capturing altogether. That would be fine with me.
Mm,
That's what we're about. What we're trying to sort through. So what I'm gathering about this is, as best you can say, there's something visual about it,
yeah.
but exactly what it is that's visual, I'm not so sure about. It's a classroom, but how much of a classroom I actually see, or how much of it is sort of implied in the seeing. I see it, but I don't. The thing seen, the classroom scene, doesn't actually appear to me. How much of
Right.
that is how much of that is present? I'm not sure.
Right.
Okay. And is there more about this experience
Um,
at any aspect of it at the moment of beep?
mm, any aspect of it? Um,
So I think going forward, it might be easier if in your opening salvo you describe sort of the whole deal. These are all the things that are present at the moment of the beep.
right.
That I was watching a movie and seeing it, but and the guy was saying something and I had it in my experience that was present. And I was also thinking in sort of in general in the direction of what I'm supposed to write about this paper and uncanny narratives. What is an uncanny narrative? And that's an anxiety arousing thing. And I feel anxiety in a mental way. And at the same time, I am somehow seeing myself presenting this paper. That's what I've got as being sort of the whole experience that was on all those things were ongoing at the moment of this beep somehow simultaneously.
Mm, okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And so what I was saying is I think it might be easier for all of us actually if you were to give that as your sort of opening salvo rather than to give
Do a
one
piece
piece
by
of
piece.
it and let us break it apart. And
Right. Okay. Yep. So should we do number two?
yes, number two, and this will be Amber's turn.
Okay. Yep, me too.
Um, so my friend Emily has said the phrase, I don't want someone to lick my crack. Now, she said this before the beep or before the sample preceding the beep, but the meaning was still in my consciousness. Um, so I am speaking at this moment. Um, I, as a matter of fact, I have said the words "don't knock it till," um, and I'm hearing the words I was speaking. At the same time, I'm inwardly seeing um, uh, a butt crack being licked. Um, now, it's this is not attached to any particular person. It's just an image I see. It has um, a it's vague and diffuse. It's not as if I'm actually seeing it in front of me, but I do see particular aspects of it. Um, like it, there is a visual component that I can identify here, um, and there's also an associated feeling with this image. There's an affective feeling of it being somehow kind of icky or clammy or something. Um, and as a matter of fact, I'm seeing my friend, um, and I am seeing her, I would say that it's about 50-50 between the image in my mind and the image of her in front of me in terms of how present each one is in my experience. Um, yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, so I heard quite a few things going on there. Um, but if I got it correctly, there's sort of three-ish, four things going on. And when I say three-ish, four, it sounds like this innerly seeing or this imaginative seeing and this seeing of Emily, I take it,
Yeah,
is, somehow equally present in a portion of my experience.
right.
So what I want to get at is there anything of all of this that is the most prominent, the most salient to me?
I would say that the phrase uttered by Emily. Actually, I would say that they're all relatively equal in salience.
Okay, so is this like 33, 33, 33, and then that innerly seeing and seeing share half of that? Does that make sense?
Um, yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, so they're all about the same.
So I'm
Okay,
not sure that I understood what they all were yet.
Right. So the
So
way I understand it, Amber, is that there's the hearing or the phrase my friend had uttered, I don't want someone to lick my crack, and the fact that my comprehension and thinking about this phrase, there's the me speaking, um, and then um, there's the dueling visual portion, which is my inner seeing and my actual seeing.
okay. So let's start with the visual inner seeing, outer seeing portion.
Right.
So I heard in the inner seeing, right? I'm seeing a butt crack being licked, and there's some components, details that are in up with that. You tell me what it is that you see.
Right. So actually, this would mean that there's more than four because I attached a feeling to it to the
Right,
image.
that icky, yes, the
Yeah.
icky feeling.
Okay. So the butt crack being licked. Um, I'm seeing something that how do I describe it if it's not in metaphor? It's almost like maybe there's sort of like pale white flesh, perhaps, or white, it's in the race flesh. Maybe the pink line of the crack, and that there's definitely that sort of line in the middle, um, that there's that sort of crease that's actual formed. Um, and then there's and the other stuff, it's all a little diffuse. Um, so
So I
those are components that I am picking at.
Okay. So I take it that in this inner seeing, the clearest piece or the clearest component is this butt crack. And this
Yeah.
being licked is, I guess I hear that somehow that piece about this is not, am I getting that right? That it's not seen directly? I just
Um,
understand it to be being licked? Or is it that I see like a tongue or a person with a tongue?
the tongue, if there is tongue, is less prominent. Um, and the other, I'm not seeing another person
Okay.
doing the licking.
So do I see the butt crack being licked, or do I understand do I see a butt crack and I understand that it's being licked?
Um, the latter.
Okay. And is that understanding directly apprehended at the moment of the beep? Or is it that at the moment of the beep, my friend had just said, you know, I don't want someone to lick my crack and that's
It,
what's going on, but really I'm just seeing a butt.
no, it's definitely, I'm seeing it being licked.
so what's hard about this discussion is, it seems to me, that what I hear Tristan saying is that he's seeing a butt crack being licked,
Hmm.
but the visual components that he is seeing are mostly of the butt crack rather than the licking.
Hmm.
Right.
But it's not like I'm just seeing a butt crack and somehow then on top of that I know that that it's being licked. It's that
Yeah.
the the topic that I am seeing, the content that I am seeing, just doesn't have all the details that match up with the description, I guess.
Mm.
So let me ask a few more questions. So do I see just the butt of this person as opposed to the whole person, but focus on the butt?
Yes. The
And
previous, the first, yeah.
okay, and does the butt have any particular characteristics, male, female, whatever?
Female.
Okay, so I'm seeing a female butt being licked.
Mhm.
Is that right? Okay. And by a bit diffuse, you mean I just don't, it's not like I see this perfectly clearly. I see some aspects of it. My seeing articulates some aspects of it.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And I'm good with that portion.
Me as well. Okay. So this innerly seeing carries this feeling, this icky, clammy feeling that I take it to be going on.
Yeah.
How is that present?
Um, that is present. Um, the fact that um, can you cue me how I might describe its presentness? It's sort of just more like a general feeling that is a general feeling that I have at the moment, and that is I I most closely associate it with this inner image rather than merely the words or what I'm saying or what, you
I
know.
guess what I'm trying to figure out is this right? I hear there's this associated feeling, kind of
Hmm.
a icky feeling, but I'm wondering, is it like I'm innerly seeing an icky, clammy, that I'm innerly seeing this butt crack and there's this icky clamminess about the image? Or is it that is that feeling somehow separate? And if it is, and and given this feeling, is it bodily or mental or like I understand that it's somehow associated with the inner seeing, but I'm
Right.
trying to figure out if there's anything else to it,
So let
or
me
if
ask
it's more than that.
one more question that might help you out here.
Okay.
Is the icky clammy about the butt, or is the immy clammy about Tristan? Tristan feels immy clammy
It's
icky.
it's about the fact that that the crack itself is being licked and not any other part of it. Um,
So is it I feel clammy icky as I think about the butt crack, or is it the butt crack being licked as an icky clammy thing?
the latter.
Okay. Then I think I'm good with that portion.
Okay, me as well. And then I just wanted to make sure I understand. I heard that there's also a outward seeing of Emily who's really there with me. Is this somehow is that directly present at the moment of the beep? It's not just that my eyeballs are aimed at Emily, we're having a conversation, but but my seeing of Emily, visually seeing Emily, is directly apprehended at the moment of the beep.
And I would like to amplify that to so I'm agreeing entirely with what Amber said, but I want to make sure that it gets transmitted.
Hmm.
It's possible for your eyes to be open and aimed at Emily, but I'm not interested in what is coming in through my eyeballs. I'm more interested in the butt crack that I am seeing in my imagination. So the question is, do I still continue to see Emily experientially, or is it the case that Emily is being processed visually, but I don't really see her? Which is, I think, the same thing that Amber said, but I made it a little heavier handedly.
Yeah. I I am still seeing Emily,
Okay.
but yeah, I am still seeing her.
Okay. Okay. Then I think I'm good with that portion. Um, all right, so then I'll move to this. I took it that you'd said I had just said, don't knock it till that's what was ongoing in the world. But really my experience is hearing those words. Like, could you tell me a little bit more about that piece as I understood it?
So let me qualify that because what I'm in both of these qualifications, I'm trying to work against the natural attitude here.
Yeah.
So I understand that you are in fact saying, "Don't knock it till." But what I want to call the possibility, I want to make it clear that it's possible that those words could just be rolling out, but I'm not really paying attention to them at all. In sort of the same sense as most of the people when they gesture, they don't actually feel a gesture. They don't see the gesture. The gesture is coming out of them, and it's meaningful. It's emphasizing this or that or whatever. But it's it's just a feature of a fact of the communication universe. But I'm not really paying attention to that. Once you accept that, then the words can be the same thing. Words can just be gestural in some way. They can be coming out in the real world, but I'm not really paying attention to them at all. And so that's one way of understanding what you're saying by, well, I heard it. What I really mean by heard it is I didn't really pay any attention to it at all. I was just, they were just happening. Or it could be that I'm speaking and I'm more paying attention to the sound of it rather than the doing of it, in which case I would say I was hearing it.
Um, I'm speaking it and I'm paying more attention to the sound of it than the mechanism of moving my mouth.
And that paying attention is present to me experientially at the moment of the beep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that to be paying attention to the sound. Like, is this the sound? I guess, is this the sound of my voice, or is this the sound of the phrase, a particular word, something else? I think I'm not
Um,
understanding that yet.
the sound of my voice saying these words.
Okay. And is there anything more to say about how the sound of my voice is in my experience? Is it is it just the sound of my voice and that's really it, or is there something about like how I don't know, inflecting on this sentence, or my voice is really low, or anything like that? But if not,
Um,
that's also an option.
it's just the sound.
Okay. Okay. And is there anything more to be said about that part of your experience?
I think I'm, no, I don't think anything more about that particular part.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Hobart, are you okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay, me too. Okay, so now let's go to the last part that I hear. This is something about the what Emily had said. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Um, uh, this was Well, she had said this thing, and this phrase that she had uttered was still in my consciousness. Uh, and it wasn't as if I was hearing it, but I was still sort of remembering her speaking it. Or I was remembering, or I was remembering these words.
Okay. So just to make sure I fully understand, I take it that Emily had said this before the beep. Emily had
Yeah.
said, I don't want someone to lick my crack, and at the moment of the beep, I'm somehow still s- on these words. And I'm wondering, am I on the meaning of it? Like I'm stuck with the meaning of it, something like that? Or is it that there's some that I am still these words are there. So I guess my question is, are the words there or not? But I'm still somehow stuck with that.
Um, the words are still there.
Okay, and the words quote or the statement quote, I don't want someone to lick my crack.
Yeah.
Or is it just so that whole statement, not just one of the words or the word
It's,
crack or something?
it was the whole statement.
Okay. And I I take it that there's some kind of something about Tristan's understanding of the phrase in the experience. Am I getting that right? It's not just that the words are there. There's a little bit more to it. Like there's something about me, Tristan, and my understanding of the words.
I maybe there's not something about my understanding
Okay.
of it. Maybe there's just the words were they.
Okay. And how are the words there?
Um, um, almost like a memory of the sound, or like the sound is still carried through. And I did say before that it wasn't sonic, but
You did say before that it wasn't the same as the first beep, but
yeah, but
but that's but it can still be sonic, but at a different level or different kind or whatever. I'm not trying to talk you into it's being sonic. So let me say what I think the options are. I think it's possible to have the meaning without the words, which you have said no, the words are present. And it's possible to have the words present without any sonic characteristics at all. Somehow these words are present to me. And it's possible to have the words present, including some sort of recognition or recollection of the sonic nature of that, even though I don't hear it. And option four, I guess, here is it can be that I could hear Emily's voice saying those. And there's probably all sorts of other possibilities or gradations within that.
yeah,
This is another.
it's not as if I can there is there is, it's almost as if like the sound of her saying this has carried through in a way. Um, as in that there's a, yeah, what was the third option again that you said? You were going through the list of ways it could be presented to myself. There was
I
like,
don't think I remember what the third option was. So, oh, the third option was the words are present and I know something, and present to me is some knowledge about the sonic characteristics. Like I can
uh,
say, I know how a trumpet sounds. I'm not hearing a trumpet, but I know what the trumpet sounds like. That could be present to me.
no, it's more like I'm hearing this phrase. Um,
And there's yet another possibility that I didn't list in the first possibility, and that is that I somehow hear Emily's sound and I don't actually hear the words, but the sound somehow carries the words.
right,
What I'm trying to say here is experientially, I think that it's possible for the sound and the meaning and the words all to be present together. And it's possible for those to be separated apart in all possible manners. I can hear the sound without the words. I can hear the words without the sound. I can hear the sound with the meaning without the words. I can hear the meaning without the words. I can hear the words without the meaning. I can hear some of each. There's no necessity that all those things are experientially tied together.
um,
And I would say one more thing about all this, and that is that I think it's probably not possible for us to go back to this particular beep and get it right.
right,
Going forwards, if we have this kind of experience, now that we've had this conversation and we've split apart all these possibilities, then it might be easier for you to be able to say about some future beep, wow, this one was definitely the sound and not the words or whatever.
right,
But that is why I think that the process that we're engaged in is what I call iterative. We have to discover what might be interesting from Tristan. And one of the things that might be interesting from Tristan is possibly this separating out of words and sounds and whatever. And so we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that.
right, right,
Some other person who engaged in this task might not have any interest at all in separating those things. It might not be important for him at all. And then in which case we wouldn't do that. So that's why I couldn't have given a lecture at the outset. Well, Tristan, and we could have said at the outset, well, Tristan, we're going to have to pay attention to this. Well, I didn't know we were going to have to pay attention to this. We have to discover that as we go. And one more thing about that iterative procedure is that now we have made this distinction. We also have to recognize, well, maybe we just had a wild hair about this distinction today, and maybe that isn't important. We should set that aside. It's not that we should make that distinction. It is not that we should make that distinction going forwards. It's that we are capable of making that distinction going forwards if it's necessary to make it. But if it's not necessary to make it, well, then we talked about this stuff and that was a one-shot deal.
yeah,
And that's just the way it is. This is not a failing of Tristan's and it's not a failing of Amber's or mine. We just we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what we have to know until we discover that, and then we try to do the best we can about it. So I would say we probably ought to go forward. I think we have accomplished quite a lot in this discussion, and we should say, well, that's good enough. We ought to go to beep number 3.
all right. Number 3.
And I'm guessing that this is one of the beeps that you said, well, it's sort of mildly embarrassing. Where should I censor? Is that right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Good
And
stuff.
and I would say we still have all the options of what to do about the recording of that. We obviously can't forget that we have had this conversation, but we could, now that you know what that conversation was actually was, then we can decide what to do about any recording or transcript or whatever about that. And we don't
Right.
have to decide that right now. We can decide that whenever.
Right. Right. Um,
So number three.
so number three. So as a matter of fact, I'm trying to write up my sample. Um, and I have two mental images in my mind at the same time. Um, I have the image of the crack being licked as described in the previous. Well, we'll determine, yeah, as described in the previous sample. Um, but um, and then I'm comparing that with, and I also have the mental image of Emily's genitalia. Um, so I have both those mental images in my mind. Um, and then I have a bodily feeling of a stomach ache. Uh, and this bodily feeling of the stomach ache is tied in with sort of like a pit in a feeling of anxiety, like there's a feeling of anxiety. Um, and there's also an anxiety over whether I should share this sample the next day. Yeah, I think that's everything.
So do I understand that there's an image of the crack, an image of Emily's genitalia, a stomach achy pit feeling of anxiety,
Yeah.
and also an anxiety over whether I should share this? So sort of four separable.
No, I would say that oh yeah, actually that's true. That that is, yeah, that's how I would describe it.
So two separate anxieties, or at least separable anxieties. Maybe they're related to each other, but
No, actually, it's the same anxiety. Um, it's the same anxiety, um, but there's also a physical component that is beyond just the anxiety, which is the pain, but the pain and anxiety are um, linked somehow.
so it would be fair to say I have a pain stomach ache pit in my stomach,
Right.
and I feel anxiety about whether I should share this, and those are not entirely separate.
Right.
Okay. And and is there anything about trying to write about the sample, or is that just sort of context and what's actually experiential to me are these two seeings
That's
and
that's just context.
okay. And is your experience more about the visual seeing, the inner two seeings, or more about the feeling anxiety, bodily feeling, bodily sensation anxiety, which is more salient to you,
Um,
if that question makes sense?
hard to say. They're about equal.
Okay. And are the two two images about equal?
Um, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the images. So there's the image of the crack being licked, and is that does as far as the visual aspect of that, is that the same as in the previous sample, or is this more detailed, less detailed, different, same angle, different angle?
It's the same.
So as far as you can tell, I'm seeing the same image that I had seen before.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the same time, I see Emily's genitalia.
Yeah.
And what do I see?
Um, it's more of a butthole quality to it. Or that's what I'm seeing.
So I see Emily's genitalia from the backside, basically. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mostly the butthole or mostly, or that's just part of it?
I'd say that's the strongest part of it.
But I see the rest of the genitalia
Yeah.
and the rest of Emily or just,
No. I mean, no, not particularly.
so I understand that I'm seeing Emily's genitalia, not just genitalia.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's mostly Emily's butthole, or is it butthole and genitalia in general?
Uh, Mostly the butthole.
Okay. And in color?
Yeah, there's like a pinkish quality to it.
Okay. And any other characteristics of this that we should be talking about?
No.
Okay. And Amber, you want to ask anything else about the visual stuff?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Then there is the bodily pit in my stomach, stomach ache,
Yeah.
and the anxiety over whether I should talk about this.
Yeah.
And are those equal
Um,
or inextricable or
Inextricable.
okay. So they seem related to each other,
Yeah.
but but related to each other but separable. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not, it is, so what I understand from that is that it's not the case that the stomach ache is just a part of anxiety. It's that I have a stomach ache, which is both a physical feeling of a stomach ache
Mm.
and a component of anxiety.
Yes.
Okay. And so let's focus on the physical aspect. What do we mean by a pit stomach ache, whatever?
Um, Pain that I feel in my stomach that yeah, pain that I feel in my stomach area that's not that I would characterize as more dull than sharp.
And strong or weak or
Um, fairly fairly moderate, I would say.
so I feel a dull, moderate pain, more or less in my stomach. And does it feel? Are we talking about by stomach the organ, the stomach, or do we mean the my midsection, my thorax? I guess you might say.
Um, my my midsection,
Okay.
but doesn't necessarily feel like it's right on the surface either.
So it's deeply in my body, but not necessarily attached to the organ, an
Yeah.
organ. Okay. And anything else to be said about that?
No.
And then somehow that is connected to or part of a feeling of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I'm understanding that that anxiety is about whether it would be a good idea to talk about this, whether I should talk about it. That makes it seem sort of at the cognitive end of anxiety. It's a specific, should I, should I not, whatever.
Um,
Or it's possible that that that's more just a way to tell us about the experience. I experience anxiety, and if I got to tell you guys about what the anxiety is like, well, this is the content of it.
um, you know what? Think I think it was more just I'm feeling anxiety.
And that anxiety involves a pain or pit or midsection sensation, but goes beyond just that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when I try to understand what that anxiety is about, I can say, well, it's probably about I gotta should I talk about this or not? But it doesn't seem like I am experientially trying to decide whether I should talk about this or is that right?
Well, actually yeah, it's just anxiety.
Mhm. Then I think I'm good, unless Amber has other questions about that.
No, I'm good as well.
So it is now 10:15, which means been at this for an hour. Do we want to call that enough? Do we want to do another one?
I think with the at the end of the last session you said you wanted to call it and that'd be fine by me, I guess.
Mhm. I think there's some logic to sticking to an hour for a variety of reasons. One is it makes it easier for everybody to plan. Another is that I think these conversations are hard. I think they're
Yeah.
I think they're we have it's always a matter of well, should we, shouldn't we talk about this? To what level should we talk about it? How do we talk about it? How do we try to be accurate about it?
I think we've done enough.
I, and so that's the second, and the third is I the more we allow for the iterative procedure to work, the better. And
Yeah.
that requires accepting that what we have said today was as good as we can do today, but maybe we'll be able to do better next time because we will have profited from the experience that we got this time.
Yeah. And my next one has a ton of different components, so it would take way too long.
Okay.
So yeah, let's plan for the next one.
Okay.
All right. Anything else that we should be saying about today before we sign off for today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So I guess I would say I appreciate the candor. I recognize that it's often difficult to determine what how to deal with these boundaries or whatever. And I think it seems to me like we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah. I'm set. I'm satisfied. Fine by me.
Okay.
Except for wanting to be clear next time about the little details, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Right. I think I the process the process is an interesting process, and it's a difficult process, and it requires, I think, going up against what the edges of what would self-censor. So I'm guessing that you probably have profited, or we have profited, maybe I should say, we have profited from your willingness to look the self-censory items in the eyeball, so to speak, in the butt crack, so to speak.
Perfect. Perfect note to end this on.
All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.